Today, we're diving into a massive political firestorm that's erupted in New Zealand over the official inquiry into its pandemic response. And let me tell you, the accusations of dodging accountability are coming in hot and heavy.
I mean, just look at this quote. It really captures the sheer heat of this whole controversy. The current Justice Minister, Judith Collins, did not hold back when she heard that key figures from the pandemic response wouldn't be appearing in public. Her take? Gutless and hypocritical. Oof.
So here's the decision at the very heart of it all. We're talking about 4 former labor ministers, including the faces of the country's COVID response, Jacinda Ardern and Chris Hipkins. They turned down an invitation to testify in a public, live-streamed setting. And that refusal? Well, it has kicked off a fierce political debate about accountability and the legacy of the country's entire pandemic strategy. And that gutless comment wasn't just a one-off. Oh no. The current government has really framed this refusal to testify publicly as a huge betrayal of public trust, and ministers have been lining up to get their criticisms in.
Yeah, the attacks were sharp and they were personal. Opponents got really clever here, kind of weaponizing the old government's own pandemic-era branding. For example, Foreign Minister Winston Peters took those daily press briefings, which were once called the podium of truth, and he flipped it, calling this refusal to appear the podium of evasion. Pretty clever, you have to admit. But okay, to really understand why this is so explosive, we have to look at the inquiry itself. Because, you see, it wasn't actually designed to be this way in the first place. The whole process got a major overhaul after a change in government, which split it into 2 very, very different phases.
And it's so important to get this. We're not talking about just any old review. A royal commission is the highest, most serious type of inquiry in New Zealand. Its official goal isn't even to assign blame, but to learn lessons so the country's better prepared for the next pandemic. You can see the exact turning point right here. The inquiry gets announced by the Labour government in late 2022, but then, after the 2023 election, a new coalition government comes in, slams on the brakes, and announces a total revamp, expanding its mission and splitting the whole thing in 2. And that shift in scope was, well, dramatic. Phase 1, the original plan, was supposed to be forward-looking, non-adversarial. But this new Phase 2? It's all about looking backward, reviewing the most controversial policies, like vaccine mandates and lockdowns. And this is the crucial part. This new phase brought in the possibility of public hearings. And that brings us right back to the central drama, the refusal of those former ministers to step up to the podium in this new, expanded, and, potentially much more confrontational public setting. So what was their official reason for saying no? Was this really about dodging accountability, just like their opponents were saying? This was really the core of their argument. They essentially said a public grilling wouldn't be about a genuine search for facts. Instead, it would be all about creating political theater. So from their perspective, the key point is this. They insist they are cooperating, just not in what they see as a public circus. They've already given hours and hours of private interviews, Ardern for 3 hours alone, and they've offered to answer more questions behind closed doors. They're basically arguing that a public hearing isn't an inquiry. It's more like a trial, where their words could be clipped up and used against them. Now, this is a super important detail that kind of got lost in some of the initial chaos. The former ministers did not defy a legal summons. The commission itself actually weighed its options and chose not to force them to appear because they felt it would violate the whole non-adversarial spirit of the inquiry and probably wouldn't get them any new information anyway. But beyond all the political jabs and the back and forth, it's easy to forget what's really at stake here. This whole inquiry is a massive national project, and it has real-world consequences for every single person in New Zealand. Just look at this number. Over 31,000. That's how many submissions from regular people, from businesses, from community groups have been sent in. It just shows the immense public interest in this. The commission is literally sifting through a mountain of personal experiences. And the inquiry is already getting results. The Phase 1 report, which came out in late 2024, it acknowledged the really complex reality of the situation. That things like lockdowns and mandates, yeah, they worked to curb the virus, but they also came at a huge social cost. They eroded trust and hit some places, like Auckland, particularly hard. And that's really the whole point, right? To cut through all the political noise and actually build a stronger, more resilient, and more fair plan for whatever health crisis comes next.
So this leaves us with two fundamentally different and honestly seemingly irreconcilable views of what this inquiry has become and what true accountability should even look like. On one side, you have former leaders like Chris Hipkins, who are arguing that this whole thing has been hijacked. They see this expanded Phase 2 as a biased process, one that was deliberately set up to get a specific political result and to give a platform to conspiracy theories. The counter-argument, of course, is that you just can't have a real accounting of the pandemic's massive impact without publicly questioning the people who made the key decisions. For them, transparency means that those who had enormous power have to answer for it out in the open. And ultimately, this whole controversy forces all of us to think about a really difficult question that has no easy answer. When we're preparing for the future, what is the right balance? Is it better to have a potentially messy and politicized public reckoning? Or is it better to have a more unified behind-the-scenes process to learn those lessons? That's the debate right at the very heart of this inquiry.